I am not a monster, so I will be taking the details of this story to the grave, but that horrifying moment when I realized my childhood good friend had epically betrayed me to soothe her fragile ego, it all came rushing back watching Michelle Monaghan's performance of Jacqueline in season 3 of The White Lotus. And you thought you were just watching Prestige TV. Mike White is talking to us about the way nostalgia from our childhood friendships can blind us to the way some people will go around blowing up your life because they don't want to deal with what's in theirs. Specifically, the women who use proximity with you for a momentary ego boost. Most of us can spot this kind of clearly when it's a new friend, right? We're understanding that, listen, we live in a racist, sexist, classist society. We need other women. We need friendships to lift each other up. It's easier to see with new people when they have insecurities or they're clinging to social status for this sense of self-worth. But too often, we find ourselves unable to see that it's our own friends close by who kick out the ladder from under us when the ingrained socialization of the patriarchy and sexism kicks in and they realize resources are scarce and there can only be one winner. You know how I talk about dating being a civil rights issue? Your friends are a civil rights issue as well. Mike White wanted this trio of women to be a blonde blob. This trio of women held together by a shared past, but each struggling to find a sense of security and safety in their present and their future. One of the more obvious questions driving this entire season is how do we see our sense of self and our place in the world in relationship to other people? And that question, that tension between these people and everybody else is what makes these character interactions so rich. Is our final form determined by this external perception or a more internal one? Putting these women in a triangle with these different gossip configurations was a brilliant way to reveal this common socialization that happens to women where we are trained to scan everybody else for confirmation of our life choices. And we do that before we allow ourselves to really sit and think about our own internal convictions. Each of these women make excuses or defend the choices they've made through tearing down other women. Now, the gossip is presented as this form of caring, we're just concerned, but really it's not constructive. It's graceless and vicious, and it's not the type of gossip that is constructive in the sense that you and a friend could be sitting down and hearing about emotional abuse that this woman is dealing with, and when she leaves, you turn to each other and you go, oh my gosh, do you see that? Did I hear that right? We don't want that for ourselves. We should say something, or we should think about our own relationships. Women talking to other women can save lives. It can save their lives and other people's lives. There's a reason why in patriarchal cultures, women congregating and enjoying a good time is such a target for incels. It's why abusers also isolate women, because this can be constructive. Focusing on Jacqueline as our vampire friend for this example, she appears generous and caring, right? She's the one footing the bill for this $9,000 a night villa. She's the generous, famous friend who didn't forget her roots, who's bringing her girls with her, even though they're, yes, successful in their own right. It's Jacqueline, not Kate, who encourages Lori to let loose, to pursue something with the butler Valentine, and to enjoy life like she does. Jacqueline continually is the friend referencing the past, but curiously, she does not seem to remember her as being the pretty one or the face. She chooses to remember herself as one of the girls, even though the other two insist that that was not at all the case. When the women reminisce about this skit that they put on back in the day, Lori distinctly remembers being the feet, and Kate remembers being the hands, and Jacqueline was, in their words, of course, the face. And Jacqueline's like, oh my gosh, what? No. It was brilliant of Mike White to not bring that scene to a conclusion where somebody accurately remembers the memory, because it's more about what these women project onto the memory or how they viewed each other, even though there wasn't this inherent truth about Jacqueline being the most beautiful one. And it's a hint at the way they have used their relationship with each other to confirm this sense of self that they have about who they are and what their roles are or forms are in this world. And at the same time, Jacqueline still so desperately, all throughout this fancy vacation, wants to be seen as the it girl. She wants everyone from the butler to the young women at the bar to accurately pedestal her as the beautiful, desirable woman. Lori has had it rough recently. She went through a rough divorce. Apparently, her daughter has gone through some kind of crisis. And the other women talk about, oh my gosh, how terrible it must be for her to be paying alimony, how, it's just been hard for her. She's a hardworking lawyer. It's not super glamorous, even though it's a high-powered job. So Jacqueline sets herself up as her supporter and champion throughout this vacation. And unlike Kate and Jacqueline, there is this sense that Lori does not have a covetable husband that would give her some social status here. She is on her own. And that matters here because she is not necessarily like the other girls in terms of presenting herself or feeling comfortable enough in that identity. She sees herself as somebody who maybe people don't go after. Carrie Coon, who plays Lori, worked hard with the makeup team and stylist to say, look, we want the nail color to always be off. We want the makeup to be a little more dialed down than the other women. And she has to just look a little bit more worn. She is keeping up, which is juxtaposed to the sleekness and the very controlled, kept look of Jacqueline and Kate. There's a reason Lori is so quiet when the two other women are going back and forth on the work that they've done, how great their doctors are, and just how good they look, without divulging, of course, any of the treatments or procedures. And she hangs back because she knows she's not involved in this conversation. And they look and they give her this afterthought compliment, which is just to be merciful. And Lori feels this. While their lives are different, they approach their identity and misery in very similar ways. While they have differentiated and they have power, significant power in their social roles as high-powered lawyer, a famous actress, and somebody who's married to a very powerful man, they still revert right back to this childhood hierarchy when they get together. And that hierarchy has to be asserted if someone gets a little uppity, which is where the great betrayal comes in. We have spent 5 whole episodes watching Jacqueline hype up her friend Lori to take a chance on Valentine and live life. And what does this woman do? While Lori is scratching her bottom in an oversized robe in the other room, this woman swoops in designer lingerie and snatches that man for herself. Jacqueline was the generous friend before her young, hot Hollywood husband stopped texting her, answering her calls, and before the young women were eyeing her at the bar, and long before Valentine insulted her by sending her to hang out and suggesting a pool for older, elderly travelers. It took just a few days for her to spiral because she thought she was losing her grip on the world's attention. So what does she do? She has to use her relationships to get this new supply of affirmation. She has built Valentine up as desirable. She has built up the kind of woman that would go after him. She has shown the other girls what desirable women do. And then she goes and she proves to herself and them that she is the one who does that. Just when she got her friend to feel confident, put herself out there, and maybe try something, she plucks the prize for herself. Is it a mistake that Parker Posey's character, Victoria, specifically dismisses and denigrates her job as something akin to prostitution? And yes, that's a specific word choice. No, because Victoria has her own conception of the forms that make a good woman versus a bad woman. And a good woman is in relationship with people and is only in relationship with one person and presents herself as one way. And she does not use her body either for entertainment or for work or for self-affirmation or affirmation from other people. And an actress in her world does. An actress, as opposed to a wife, in that mindset is somebody who has to constantly be shape-shifting, changing, or performing, and that's somebody you can't trust. While that exchange is not Mike White's worldview, it is casting some doubt and it's casting some suspicion on this woman and what could come. In the most generous read, it's Victoria realizing or thinking that women like Jacqueline have to navigate a hard and cruel environment, and they have to mold themselves into whatever helps them survive. Professor Tressie McMillan wrote how in the economy and the politics of beauty, somebody has to be less beautiful for you to have more beauty capital. For there to be a winner, there has to be a loser. When you are friends with people who do not deal with your issues, they cannot help but betray you in order to save themselves and their sense of self. It's why fancy black girls feel blindsided when supposedly cool white girlfriends pull the race card, or someone a little richer than you pulls the class card, or when 2 women of color are standing there and one of them's like, nope, only one of us can be left standing. And sometimes, in Lori's case, you're simply kept around to perpetually play the loser to somebody else's winner.